today with Scott Bedbury. Scott, how are you? Beautiful vista.
I'm doing great. I'm just reaching in from Bainbridge Island, just outside of Seattle.
Very nice. I'm in the White Room, and it's not as beautiful as where you are. But what can I do?
There's a bit of a storm going on, and a neighbor is chainsawing a tree that fell down yesterday. So if you hear some noise, that's what that is.
Got it. Listen, you've worked with Nike, and you worked with Starbucks, establishing their brand and the foundations around them. When you're building a brand, where do you start?
Boy, well, my first book 20 years ago, but I wouldn't change any of the principles. You got to know it before you can grow it. So there's got to be a lot of self-examination. Where are you? How'd you get there? What is it in your DNA you want to hang on to? But a lot of companies get bought, sold, merged, revolving door, CMO, CEO. So I always advise clients to get an unbiased view of inside, what all the stakeholders feel about the company and the brand. And then obviously external, the community that makes the brand possible, not just customers, but all the influencers in the middle. And that's always the place to start. And that's easier to do when a company is smaller. I stepped in to help the founders of Air BnB, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia and Nate Belicharzik in 2011. They called me up when they had 50 employees. And it's fun to get a client that wants to build a brand, not just a great product. And that is what set Brian and Joe apart as designers from RISD. They really appreciate the creative process and creating something that evokes a feeling, and a spirit, an ethos. So when you have 50 employees to work with, you can get it right quickly. And then the DNA, because they all hire people who hire people, and getting it absolutely right early is it's a bit easier. Not to say you can't do it. I've done it for Samsung and big companies, Coca-Cola, that they measure their employees or touch points in the tens or hundreds of thousands. That just takes more time. Right.
So would you say, kind of in terms of Airbnb, would you say it was brave to start in that place and actually they were going against the norm?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the questions I ask clients, regardless of their size, and it's one that really helped Airbnb, I think, is when what you do can't be any more meaningful, can't be any more powerful, can't be any more memorable. What is that? And we did that exercise at Starbucks and found that it had nothing to do with coffee.
Right.
It has all to do with the moment, right? And for Airbnb, it was providing lodging to somebody that really, really, really needed it. So their whole CSR platform, Open Homes, comes literally, the roots of that discussion go back to an offsite in November of 2011 to find that's the thing you want to own. And for Nike, it was reflecting winning as a professional athlete, those moments, way back in the days when Michael Jordan had hair and they were all about just winning. That was my period when I was there from 87 to 94.
Yeah.
But they eventually made the shift, and the Just Do It campaign shifted to a more emotional territory that was more accessible to more people. You didn't have to be a jock. You didn't have to be a guy. You didn't have to be 22 years old. You could be 60, 70. One of the first commercials we did for the Just Do It campaign was an 80-year-old runner by the name of Walt Stack, who ran 17 miles a day, 80 years old. But he embodied, to this day, God rest his soul, he embodied the Just Do It spirit better than anybody. So it's that finding the emotional territories that are meaningful when what you do is really, really powerful. Now, sure, you have to start with a product that's reliable, it's great, it's differentiated, and you've nailed it. You can scale that thing. But the next leap, and most companies never quite get there, is to own all the emotional territories around it. Plato, I think it was Plato that said, the definition of anything is not the thing itself, it's the idea of the thing. It's right. Sort of the ethos around it, right? Yeah. And some brands are really good at that. Others just fail.
So let me ask, we live in this world at the moment where there's a lot of bad things happening and and the economic cycle is definitely on a downturn and business maybe isn't doing that well. Actually, it's the world of marketing is actually its own worst enemy in terms of it's amazing at helping in terms of external promotion, but the first thing that a lot of companies do in bad times is cut marketing and cut the brand and everything like that. And why is it perceived as an easy thing to get rid of when you're looking to cut costs?
Well, it's not really a fixed cost, it's every year it can be up or down depending on the power of the plan or whatever's going on in the market, right? I think right now, probably more than any other time I've looked at it, is the worst time to cut it. Unless your marketing really, really sucks. And then I would say 2/3 of it is probably not worth the money spent on it, honestly. And I'd say half of it's actually hurting the brand. It's saying the wrong thing. It hasn't evolved. It looks like it was done 10 years ago.
Mm.
It's not authentic. It's not remarkable. It's not human. It's not cognizant of this thing you just described, this time we live in. So one of the principles in the book I'm writing now, which is almost finished, thank God, it's been a 6-year slog. I took on the war on truth and the collapse of trust. And I started researching it 2 weeks before Donald Trump was elected president. By the way, on behalf of all of America, I apologize for that. I didn't vote for him. But no, I mean, Americans are great. We experiment with everything. We try everything. Hopefully we learn something. But it isn't like trust has been degrading slowly since the 60s. Institutional trust, and not just in America, but in a lot of places. It went into absolute free fall around 13, 14, 15.
Okay.
And I lay a lot of that blame on the feet of social media, because they were able to weaponize information and crawl inside people's heads, stoke their fears, sow the division, create anxieties, create a whole sense of just, the world's falling apart. And I think what happened isn't just that we lost trust. It's been atomized. It's been broken into a billion bits, right?
Yeah.
And it's terrifying when you think about that, because that's true across everything, just sort of been broken. But trust lives in a closed system. It never goes away. It goes to find something or someone else. Someone may break up with you in college and it breaks your heart. If you're like most people, you found someone else, right? Or a brand you've purchased for decades suddenly does something stupid, or the CEO gives money to the wrong political candidate and it really offends you, you're going to go someplace else, right? So I've never seen so much trust up for grabs and right now, right in this moment. And you have so many consumers, customers, and influencers who are looking through a very careful lens at people, whether you're hiring them or customers you want, right? Or just the general market, which the bar now has gotten so high in terms of what they expect out of a brand, in terms of how am I to give my trust? But it's taken decades, and I would say in some cases a century, to dislodge some of the trust that is loose right now.
Right.
It's going somewhere. And I think smart brands are going to step up and first figure out strategically where they need to be to build that, to attract that, to hang on to that, and then invest behind it. Because these opportunities, they happen once in a generation or once every 2 generations.
And so do you think they'll be able to do that using social media? Is social media now kind of, we all inherently will never really fully trust it as well?
Given the current players, I wouldn't trust anybody, honestly. I trust some people that I know at Google individually more than others. But no, until it's really regulated, and you're fortunate, you're in Europe in particular, it's got some regulations we don't even have here, right? In terms of the downside of doing something dangerous or destructive to people or institutions. So as it always is, it takes governments years, if not decades, to catch up with science.
Yeah.
We saw that with the splitting of the atom, the hydrogen, the Manhattan Project, and the consequences of that have taken decades to figure out. And social media has moved so fast, we could never catch up with it. So I think we're rounding the corner finally, and we're seeing that the destructive nature of this is so profound. The second chapter in the book I'm writing now is simply titled "Welcome to World War We," which is this weaponization of turning everybody against everything. Where there's trust, it's always been easy to break trust. It's hard to build it, right? Yeah. So with the social web is a battering ram. You can literally point it at people that are on the edge on something. They can be tipped over really easily, one way or the other, and wreak havoc with them. So I think that's another long way of saying this is the worst possible time to stop paying attention to consumers. You should be doing some really deep, meaningful research. Go beyond web analytics and sentiment and all that. That's fine. Have real conversations with people. Get out in the markets. Do some deep tissue stuff. And then find that ground to what I said before, when what you do is as meaningful as it can ever possibly be. What is that? And again, for Starbucks, it was creating the third place between home and work. Before I got there, we were just talking about espresso drinks and how they're made. And it was a shift to the experience. I called it transcending the cup. But every brand needs to find a way to transcend the cup. You still do great product, you can still talk about it, But if you buy marketing and all you do is talk about yourself, a lot of consumers will just look away. A healthcare company here in the United States 10 years ago now was kind of the strategy behind it. But the premise behind it was what we see today. It was this divisiveness, this lack of humanity.
Yeah.
So we basically created a new word called human kindness. And we just went to the web and just stole stuff off of social media, showing these acts of just random, powerful kindness, and branded that within a healthcare company. It's super powerful. And they're still running it. They've been bought by another company that has 10 other hospital systems. They're all using the platform, but it speaks to the power of empathy in an age when we're losing it. And I think that's the single most, common thread through what I'm writing this new book. And empathy and sympathy are different things. Sympathy they're different. Sympathy is sort of like, it's like having empathy, but not having the will to do anything about it. You just sit there and, I feel so sorry for someone.
Yeah.
Empathy, you're engaged. You see what's going on. It isn't always bad. It can be something fantastic happening. Nike had empathy for the athlete. That wasn't necessarily trying to give them a handout. It was like, what do they need? What kind of shoes do they need? How do they think of themselves? Where is their ego? What's their world like? And so the book has a very strong piece in there about really restoring humanity in life and work. And I think corporations have a really big place to play in that now.
Yeah, honestly, I love that, because I remember
people looking for more experiential opportunities to learn that make coming from wherever people are working from, because half will probably be someplace else for a long time, really meaningful. And we have a business partner and I, guy who worked at Nike for 36 years with me, Steve Nichols. We built a kind of a retreat facility in Bend, and Bend is on the dry side of the mountains. It's 300 days of sunshine, which is very unlike Portland, Oregon, which gets about 50.
Yes.
But Nike uses it, Adidas uses it. It's it's 5,000, about 6,000 square feet of work hard, play hard. It's got its own bar. It's got 3 fire pits. It's got shuffleboard. It's got 4 conference rooms. It's a great spot to just get away, because it's not tucked inside some resort somewhere.
Yeah.
It's on the edge of town, right where you head up to go ski Mount Bachelor. It's a great spot.
And then what, they just drop in for a few days to get kind of as a team or whatever it was and get away. And I love that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And what we're finding is now the companies are booking it for 4 or 5 days.
Right.
So it's not so much for a meeting, it's to work together for some period of time in an environment where they can actually have some fun. And it's not, you've given up everything to go be with your team for a week. So yeah, it's not so much the 1 day, 2 day.
No, thank you so much. It's been enlightening. I really appreciate your time.
You bet. Great. Happy to help.